guys. Hope you have a great conference so far. It's an honor to be here. Thanks for having me. Thanks for the introduction. I was not aware that it's so popular using it. This topic is not really something new, but I thought it was worth mentioning our most diligent worker in the company, not really, but Renovate really leverages a lot of work, eases our daily life, keeping our dependencies up to date. First of all, I want to say hi to my colleague Sasha, who cannot be here today because he's ill, so I just dropped in to fill the gap, and I'm gonna talk about using Renovate. I'm going to give you a quick overview, followed by a short demo. And I'm going to talk about the most crucial features of the Renovate bot and how those features got me really going and digging deeper into that project. First things first, the project's on GitHub. Of course, the documentation can be found on docs.renovatebot.com. And the setup I'm using is basically founded on GitLab.com project called Renovate Bot and Renovate Runner, because I use it on a self-hosted GitLab instance. So most of my configuration is coming from that project, or is at least inspired by it. Well, what does Renovate do for us? How can it help us to keep our dependencies up to date? It basically has two crucial functions. The first one is whenever it detects a dependency to be updated, it determines the updates necessary, and it creates pull requests for us and notifies us about that pull request in GitLab. It supports a lot of platforms, such as these, for instance. I personally use it on a self-hosted GitLab instance. You can also use it as an NPM package, if you like, or get it as a Docker image on Docker Hub. The full feature set is definitely provided by the self-hosted edition, but I'm going to use it on GitLab self-hosted. Renovate uses so-called package managers, or in brief, just managers, to detect and update third-party dependencies in your code repository. Whenever I am talking about the term project in the following examples, I mean GitLab project, just to clarify that. And for instance, there are a lot of package managers which come shipped with Renovate, and each of those managers know best how to determine version updates for a specific package or a specific language or a project, such as Docker Compose or Docker files. By the way, you do not explicitly have to define those managers. They come shipped with it. Maybe you want to disable some of these, so your complete rule set is a little more streamlined afterwards, and you can speed up renovation process a little bit. So those managers, for instance here, the Docker file manager, use file patterns or string patterns to look for, and so hereby determine if a certain update is necessary for your software or not. For instance, there are reasonable defaults coming with Renovate. For instance, the Docker file pattern it is looking for with that big D in the beginning, and you can also extend those rule sets. For instance, you can do something crazy like this does not look like a Docker file, meaning you want to update Docker files, so you can freely extend it on your own. The next thing in Renovate is surely the presets. It comes with a lot of presets shipped. They give the Renovate bot a really good starting configuration with good, reasonable default settings. They also deduplicate your configuration, and you can share those presets among your projects or more projects, or even do this online and provide other users with your presets you have developed. You could also use someone else's configuration and extend it with your rules. Maybe some of your rules differ a little bit from the upstream rule sets. How does such a preset look like? Here's the very most crucial and basic one. It's called config base, and it does some things such as enabling the dependency dashboard for Renovate, or setting some pull request limits per hour, or some concurrent limits. So these are really basic settings. I did not have to change any of these when I was starting, but I thought it was worth mentioning those presets and what they do in the background. To be honest, I did not change anything of that rule sets, but this is what is running under the hood. So I do a little rundown of some of my favorite features. Maybe you have your own, or you will have your own, which really got me going with Renovate, and which is easing my work every day. So some key features are surely to auto-discover projects. You can configure Renovate in GitLab in a way that it discovers code repositories automatically and creates an onboarding configuration in those repositories. So the repositories themselves are completely agnostic from Renovate, and Renovate centrally does a distributed configuration and gives each project its very own fine-grained configuration file. Also, it can automatically merge pull requests. It's not always a good idea to automatically merge requests, but in some cases it might be really reasonable. I use it for one special case, which is doing the updates for Renovate itself on an automatic basis, and they come on a daily basis, and you do not want to merge it manually every day. So this is something you can really automate, and saves you a lot of time. Also, you could skip minor version updates if a major version was already merged. So you will not be remembered every time that there was a lower version still to be updated if you're already in the timeline 3 steps further. So this is, Renovate does a lot of housekeeping and has a lot of intelligence on its own. And well, of course, it has a dependency dashboard, which gives you every time an overview over open merge requests, and you could combine or group merge requests. Also, it gives you some release notes for upstream projects. You may want to read them first. Some more key features. Of course, you can add custom labels to your merge requests, so you can better determine among your requests which were done by Renovate or which were done by you manually. It can customize its commit messages. Also, this gives you a better overview about the work of Renovate. And good to know is that it only, by default, it only checks for updates on the main branch, but you could also configure it searching for updates in some feature branches if you wish. And last but not least, it can create a centralized template with an onboarding configuration, as I mentioned before. And in this centralized template, you define all the rules you wish your projects to have later on. So this is kind of a blueprint for your single code repositories. And since there are definitely a lot of pull requests and updates available for your Docker image tags, Renovate offers a very precise strategy and a versioning strategy how to stick to your image tag versioning schema. For instance, if you are on a Docker image 1.1, it will never leave this updating strategy. So Renovate will never propose you a more specific or a more common image update, so you will not get lost in this image tags. You always stay in your precision level of image tags. Now, let's start later on in the demo with a very simple and basic setup of how you can integrate Renovate in your GitLab, for instance, and then see how it can grow and integrate into your workflows. These are, in brief, these are the components you need to get started. You need the Renovate bot, as I mentioned, as NPM or a Docker image. I used the Renovate runner image because I want to use it with GitLab. Then optionally, I sometimes am using a config JavaScript file, which holds a basic global configuration when I want to set up Renovate as a centralized instance in my whole GitLab setup, but this is optional. There are different ways to configure it. You really need the Renovate JSON project configuration file because this is the configuration which is then definitely in each code repository and holds the precise rule set for each repository. Then you need a Renovate token, which is a GitLab access token. It must be named Renovate token, and you can place it in your CI variables. And it must have enough scope to be able to create pull requests in your projects, of course. Then I would highly recommend to use the GitLab com token. It's a very basic GitHub token. It doesn't need any specific scope in GitHub, but it's used to obtain the release notes from GitHub for the upstream projects if you want to offer it in the dependency dashboard. And finally, you need a trigger to start the renovation process, after all, which is usually a pipeline or a scheduled pipeline. So now going into each of those important components, how does it look like to integrate Renovate in your pipeline? Here we have our main GitLab CI YAML file, our main pipeline. Two things to be done. We include a remote URL, which holds a CI template offered by the Renovate runner project on gitlab.com. We integrate this. And the second one is we integrate a job for Renovate, running it in its own stage called update run, call it whatever you like. And we need an image. Also, Renovate, as I mentioned before, updates its own images, of course. So here we have the most current Docker image for Renovate. Then this is the optional step, as I mentioned before. I'm using it sometimes. I'm building an onboarding configuration on a single spot in GitLab. I got my own Renovate group and my own Renovate project, which holds everything I want to have distributed to my other source code projects in GitLab. And this onboarding configuration here in the code example is being distributed to other projects. And as you can see in the last line, auto discover true, this means that Renovate, if it has an access token with enough scope to find other projects, is able to discover them and do the onboarding of those projects. Then finally, you need this Renovate JSON, which is, when you're using the onboarding feature, created automatically in each project, or you can define it manually on your own. It holds this preset, as I mentioned before, and integrates this Renovate schema, which holds the complete rule set, the complete package managers, which find the updates actually for your projects later on. I found two basic approaches how to configure Renovate in my GitLab setup. The first one, as I mentioned, is a centralized Renovate bot instance running in its own group in GitLab, and which is distributing its configuration to other projects. So as I said, it can automatically discover other projects and give them their onboarding configuration. it requires an access token which has enough and sufficient permission and access scope to other projects. This is really a good approach when you are controlling the whole GitLab instance on your own, or at least you're controlling many other GitLab projects on your own. The second one, and this is the one I'm going to show you in the demo later on, it's a separate standalone instance setup. So you have a pipeline in each specific project, and each project holds its own Renovate JSON configuration. And also it requires an access token, a project token, so Renovate can do its job. This is visually the first setup. Again, as you can see, we have a central Renovate instance running in one of the GitLab projects. It has its own project, and it triggers the pipeline. Like water falls down, and so it gives each project its configuration, but is being triggered up there. And a separate instance version has CI pipelines in each project, and they are triggered on their own. So this is more an multi-tenant approach. If you have many customers and you strictly want to separate your customers, this would be the approach to go. Now let's do a little tweaking and tuning. Briefly, you want to reduce noise. Renovate is really giving you a lot of information. It's cool in the beginning, but it can be overwhelming over time. And when you're getting used to it more and more, you might want to reduce a little noise from the tool so it doesn't bother you all the time. So maybe you want to disable the dependency dashboard later on, or of course, schedule when at what point of time pull requests are being processed and proposed. So we have a little bit overview in time. Also, you can try grouping your pull requests so you don't have so many notifications on your system. As I said, I'm using automatically merged requests on the Renovate updates themselves. And this is how you do it. You have to create a package rule which does an auto merge for Renovate's very own updates. So you might have problems when you're doing this auto merge. There are some obstacles which might block auto merges. For instance, the access token could have insufficient permissions. So everything fails silently. You're not getting notified why it fails. So first of all, look at your access token if the scope is sufficient doing that auto merge. And if your repository enforces some security rules or guidelines, such as you cannot merge into a branch without doing feature branches, then this could also block the auto merges of Renovate. Keep that in mind. If you want to try it on your own, some little hints. You might want to start with a Renovate dry run first, so everything will be written to the logs and not be executed actually. So you can read everything in the logs. You can set the logs to the debug level, which gives you really a lot of information. It helped me a lot getting started with it. Another thing is, if you are learning Renovate in the beginning, you might want to try it over and over again until you really have a good feeling about your setup and your configuration and if it's really working precisely. So you might want to delete pull requests over and over again, because Renovate never forgets. If a pull request was already merged, it will not forget about it. So if you want to trigger it again and to see if it works, it already remembers, I've done that already, so you cannot really trigger it again. So you have to delete merged pull requests again. Also delete their branches and maybe the dependency dashboard. And if you want to try out the onboarding feature, so that a Renovate JSON config file is being distributed over and over again, you also have to remove that file as well to be able to try it again. Well, as I said, set the log level to debug, maybe not. And I would really recommend that you start using it conservatively. You might want to recognize every pull request first and really get through it, have a look at each one of them. But if you're learning more about it, then you might want to reduce a little noise. And keep in mind that the Docker image of Renovate is rather large. It has over 1 gigabyte, so pulling it every time can be a little time consuming. Keep that in mind, or using disk storage. Now let's take a look at a short demo. Hope it works. Good. I have a project. And remember, I'm going to show you the separate instance setup where I have a Renovate configuration in each of my projects, triggered by a very own pipeline of that project itself. So here I have a pipeline first. Okay, you can see it. As I mentioned, I have a stage for Renovate exclusively. It's the update run stage. And the remote include of that CI template coming from the Renovate runner project from GitLab. And I have a job for Renovate to run. I have the log level set to debug. Also, I have the onboarding configuration activated, its image, and this is basically it to integrate it to our pipeline. The second thing, we need those access tokens, which I have here in the variables set. I have 2 of them. Remember, we need the Renovate token, which is our GitLab project access token, so it's allowed to do those merge requests. And I have that, optionally, I have that GitHub com token to obtain the release notes in our dashboard later on. The third thing we need is a scheduled pipeline. I run it on a daily basis, which is reasonable for me. So every morning I have that notifications about what happened during the night. And this is currently the way I am going to show you how to trigger it manually for our demo right now. And this is what I do. So let's start this pipeline. And Renovate hopefully is doing its job. And I expect it to find some updates for my source code. By the way, I have some dummy source code here. I have a Docker file, and I have a Docker Compose file with some Docker image tags in it. And I want Renovate to find some updates for it. Let's see if that works. Yeah, pulling image. I was pulling it in advance before, but maybe it forgot it. Maybe my runner forgot it. Give it another second. Oh, come on, wake up. But that's life. Yeah, it's doing something. Fine. Okay, I think it went through. And as we can see, we have some merge requests here, 2 of them. That's fine. Let's first look at this issue. What is this issue? It's the dependency dashboard. I have this function turned on. Let's see what it does for us. It tells us that it has detected dependencies in 3 types of files. I mentioned I have a Docker Compose file, yeah, and it found this Compose file and found some updates for image tag in that YAML file. Also, it recognized this Docker file, and it's the managers, the package managers, who determine those files. It found some updates in the Docker file, and also it followed through my GitLab pipeline file and found an update for Renovate's own Docker image, which is really cool, I think. And we want this Renovate, its own update, to be merged automatically. I will show you in a second how this works. So I get an overview with this dependency dashboard. I can jump right into each merge request if I like. So let's go to merge requests. Here is each one of them. It has a Renovate label added to it, so I can filter it. And you can see there are already merged pull requests. For instance, those are from yesterday, I think. Those are pull requests which were auto-merged because they are Renovate's own updates, and I wanted them to be auto-merged so they don't bother me every day. So how does this work? Why? Let's look at this Renovate JSON file, this specific configuration of my project. As I said, we have the schema included, which holds the complete rule set for it. We have this config base preset, which I have changed slightly because I want to have the Renovate label added to my pull requests. Also, you can see this flag up here. I have some to-dos. Those are the merge requests I have to do. And I want to have my user assigned those pull requests. And as I told you, we have a special package rule, which begins here, and which determines the Renovate package updates themselves and does an auto-merge only for those packages. I want them to be treated differently from all my other image updates. So this is effectively the rule doing those Renovate updates automatically and silently every day. And maybe you asked yourself why it can follow my GitLab pipeline and find Renovate updates in that CI file. So I have this extension here. I have a file match for those YAML files with the GitLab CI manager, so it can follow through those special files as well and determine updates in them as well. So I'm basically through with my configuration, and this is how you do it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Christian.
Thanks.
Yeah, really cool tool. I believe we do have some questions on Slido.
Sure.
So let's start off with the first one. Can Renovate update Helm chart versions and Helm chart dependencies?
Short question and short answer, yes. Of course, it's the same mechanism to be used. Yes.
Cool. Next one, are company-wide statistics dashboards possible? For example, to answer the question, which team merges Renovate PRs the fastest? Not that it's a race. Maybe sometimes.
Oh, that's a good idea. There should be a challenge in my company as well. I haven't tried. Company-wide statistics. I haven't tried. Yeah, I will. Sorry, I cannot really answer it.
Read the docs. Check it out.
Yes, yes.
Try it out.
Is Bitbucket supported too? I don't know. Do you know?
I don't think so.
No.
You can run your own instance.
Yeah.
Similar to what you're doing, basically.
Yes.
But I don't think it has a app
No.
on Bitbucket? I know GitLab, you can use their own app.
Yes, on GitHub as well, but there's no real native support for Bitbucket. I haven't read about that. Yes, please.
Bitbucket with Renovate.
Really?
Yes.
Okay, cool. And
There you go. Cool. Yeah, see?
thank you.
So it's being used in quite a few companies as well.
Really good.
Oh, yeah, this one's interesting. What are the main differences in comparison to Dependabot?
Yeah, honestly,
So, Dependabot, yeah.
yeah, I have no experience with Dependabot. I stepped in one year ago and started with Renovate. I cannot answer that. Sorry. Yes, please.
I heard that the grouping feature, for example,
Uh-huh.
something we only have in Renovate.
Ah, cool. Okay.
Yeah, so I tried Dependabot as well, and I found Renovate a lot more powerful.
Okay.
So, and a lot more, you can fine tune, as you were showing us,
Yes.
maybe do a PR only every day or every hour or what.
I mean,
to the minute.
This was, I guess, 1% of the features it has to offer. This was really nothing I showed you right now. Okay.
There is a Renovate Slim image. How does it differ from the latest one?
Sorry, I haven't tried it. I always pull the large Docker image. I don't know. I always use the full Monty.
Cool. Last few questions.
Yes,
I
sure.
think we've got time for all of them. And I really like the project, so we're going to do them. Can Renovate work with Terraform to determine version of instance family updates?
I don't know. Sorry.
I think it does.
Really?
It does Terraform. I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm sure. Probably.
Yeah,
It works with HCL. Yeah, it does.
It works with Terraform.
Yeah.
fine. Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
There you go.
Wow.
And last one, is there a way to let Renovate create example tickets instead of PRs if it detects a version bump?
You mean GitLab tickets? Or,
I don't know who asked the question. I assume it would probably be like, or maybe Jira tickets.
What?
I don't know if it's Jira tickets, but
Yeah.
maybe GitLab tickets or within the project.
I haven't used it. I haven't used it. I have not found out. I always use the usual pull request mechanism. Maybe you can build something around on your own to pick that one up. Yeah.
But yeah,
Okay.
cool. Are there any questions, further questions within the audience? Thank you, Christian.
Thank you very much. Thanks.